It is still the conversation coming to you live on Lagos Television. Do remember to join us on our various social media platforms to engage us on the program today. Years before now, the public service was rated high in terms of commitment, ethics, and of course, excellent service delivery. But these days, it appears things are changing and so many factors are responsible for some of those complaints people are lodging about the quality of service being rendered in the public service. What are these factors, and what are the ways, what are the strategies that we can put in place rather to amend some of these lapses that people often notice in public service delivery? Joining us this morning to look at this is Dr. Abiola Salami, popularly known as the Champ, is a world-class performance strategist. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me
on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me start from our intro this morning. In those days of our fathers, our mothers, we had a quality performance when it comes to public service, how they deliver their services, and of course the quality of workforce that we had then. But these days, people often complain that the public service is lackadaisical, the commitment is not there, the work ethic is not there, and when you take anything to a public service office, one way or the other, what ought to take you 3 days might take you 3 months. What do you think we are missing between then and now?
Thank you, great question. And as a son of 2 public servants, I have real interest in this conversation.
Good.
My mom, a teacher at the state level, and my dad was a paramilitary officer at the federal level. And so when I think about civil service in 2024, there's a level of excellence that I am hoping that we can get into. And it's important for us to not just point fingers at our dear civil servants of today, but to remember that there's been a transition. These days that we're talking about the 70s, the 80s. Our country today is not where it was that time. There are cultural issues, there's change in government, there are a lot of things that has made our country to evolve. And that evolution also, in some way, negatively impacted how people perceive their work as public servants. And so, which is responsible for some of the complaints that we may be having this time. But that said, it's also important for us to not forget that there are gains, that has been recorded. There are some states, who are making effort to ensure that they engage and empower. And those are the 2 words we'll look more into, in the course of this conversation. That they engage and empower their civil service, ensuring that they are more intentional in the engagement of civil servants, such that all these complaints about lackadaisical attitude, all these complaints about overly delaying, I will use the word transactions, so whether it is to sign a document, to file a document, I will just use it as transaction, overly delaying transactions or delaying service, public service. These are realities, and the reason for that is the evolution of our country, evolution of how people now perceive their work as public servants, how the public as well perceives public servants, having some expectations that are not unrealistic. And for us to really move things forward, it is important for us, and when I say us, I'm referring to both the government and citizens, to continue to create opportunities for the civil servants to build their capacity. If we really want to build a stronger democracy in this country, we need to focus on building the capacities of public servants. So we need to move from complaining about public servants to building the capacity of public servants.
Okay, when you talk about building capacity, we're in the age of technology. How much of these are we taking advantage of when it comes to rendering services in the public service? I know Lagos is exceptional, but in some other parts of the country, you get there and they're still analog. So how do you promote efficiency when you're still analog in the age of ICT?
Good question. And it begins with reorientation, right? One of the things I've seen around is many times we assume that when we discover something, when we know something, we expect every other person to know it almost immediately. And when they are not on that wavelength, we start to criticize them and think that they are inferior to us. But the way to go is about continuous orientation. Like you said, Lagos State is exceptional. There are states who come into Lagos State to understudy how Lagos State is performing in some aspects. There are some ministries, departments, and agencies that I know and I see how people come in from public servants, senior public servants, coming from other states to come and understudy. So it is great that there's that opportunity to understudy. We need to ensure that our public servants are even open-minded so that they can embrace new learning, new technology. We need to create an enabling environment for them not to just see themselves as somebody going to a place to just clock in
and
clock out at the end of the day. We need to make them to start to increase their self-awareness, to start to see the importance of their contribution to nation building and growth, the significance of their seat in adding value and moving the nation forward. Not just about what it is that they can get. What they can get is very important. We continue to ensure that we offer more incentives, for high-performing civil servants, and also motivating them, inspiring them, orienting them, training them to contribute greater.
Okay, when you talk about incentives, there are complaints here and there that in terms of motivation, work environment, and the encouragement to deliver, it is often not there. Do you agree? And what role does that play in your efficiency?
So, a highly motivated workforce is a high-performing workforce. A highly motivated civil servant is a high-performing civil servant. That said, there are times as humans we also have unrealistic expectations that we want the government or the people, to just give us call figures, and we just say that make sure that you meet this, without necessarily paying attention to what the economic indices even of the country as well. So there is no doubt that a highly motivated civil servant will deliver high performance. And so there's the import of the incentives given, the working conditions, the working tools, as well. Because many times we point accusing fingers at civil servants that they are not delivering. And the question to ask is, do they have the capacity to deliver? Do they have the tools to deliver? Do they have the right environment to deliver? And the purpose of this conversation is not blame fixing. The purpose of this conversation is a progressive improvement, because what we are looking for is excellence in front. So what are the things we need to start to do and continue to do, to enable us ensure that every civil servant in Nigeria stands shoulder to shoulder with any civil servant in the world?
Okay, before you go into the things that we need to do, in those days of our parents, their pay was so meager, yet they were able to do so many things. Their pay could take them home compared to what we have now. And they were exposed to training locally and internationally. Well, it's not the same these days. And how do you think the political class have equally, their influence now have equally affected the performance of public servants?
Okay. There are many times you see people in service, in public service, who came in through the influence of a political leader. Maybe someone, trying to make sure that people in his or her constituency are gainfully employed, will make this opportunity available, which is great. And for some, it's political compensation, which there is nothing bad about it, right? In other climes, there are lobby groups, there are compensations, there are all of these things. It's just that at times, because of our lack of knowledge and exposure, we critique the things that are supposed to help the fabric of our society, to stand. But what my appeal, to politicians on this is to ensure that while you're trying to avail someone an opportunity to be gainfully employed in civil service, it is important for us not to compromise on competence of the individual. It is important for us not to compromise on competence. So what we can do with that is to send them for training programs, right? Is to ensure that we also don't have square pegs and round holes as well. Because competence is not just my capacity to do work. Competence is also my capacity to fit into a particular job role. such that we're thinking, while compensation is not a bad thing, I'm still saying it, we need to also focus on ensuring that the people that we're trying to ensure they are gainfully employed, they have the capacity to add value.
And the skills.
Yes, they have the capacity. So when we say capacity, we're looking at three things: knowledge, skills, and attitude, right? That they have the knowledge to deliver on the job role. If they don't have the knowledge yet, we can send them for training, right? There's on-the-job continuous training, making sure that they have the skills to function effectively on the role. If they don't have the skills yet, there are many opportunities for them to develop that skill. If they don't have the attitude as well, that we can engage them, inspire them, see them, show them examples that can help them to reorientate themselves. One of my favorite quotes is by A.W. Toffler, who said that the illiterate of the 21st century is not about people that cannot read nor write, but people that cannot learn, which is acquiring new knowledge, new skills, new attitude, unlearn, which is the knowledge, skill, and attitude that you had before you got on this role is no more needed. So you take it out of your system and then relearn, which is the knowledge, skills, and attitude that you have that has worked before, the part of it that you need for the new place that you are in, that you review it, so that it becomes native intelligence to you. So it is important for us to focus on competence development, to make sure that every civil servant in Lagos, in Nigeria, can stand shoulder to shoulder with their counterparts in the whole world, having the knowledge, the relevant skills, and the attitude to deliver excellence.
Okay, you raised something very, very important, which is what most public servants lack these days. That is training. We often trivialize the quality of training that we get, and sometimes a particular training that ought not to be given to a particular public servant is given to such. Why such abnormalities, and what can government do in terms of policy to ensure that, okay, the particular training that you need is what is given to you? Okay,
so I may not be able to speak to why training made for A is given to B, but as a performance strategist,
because I've had public servants in some other states attend a particular training that is not even meant for their line of work.
Oh, okay. So as a performance strategist, here's what I do with the organization I started 12 years ago, CHAMP. Is before training, you do what we call a training need analysis, right? TNA, a training need analysis. And even the training need analysis is not the beginning. It starts from an appraisal. So for, let's say, this is 2024. So let's say 2023, we conduct an appraisal in this particular agency or department or ministry. And from the results of the appraisal, we discover that this set of leaders, they would need some particular skills, that there's a skill gap, that they have, that they would have functioned better in 2023 if they know 1, 2, 3 things. Now, based on the results of that appraisal, we have that training need to see the gap analysis, and then now design an intervention to help address that. Training is always an intervention to address a skill gap. Training is always an intervention to address a skill gap, to help build the capacity, of the individual leader, the individual public servant. So it is important that that process, that we don't compromise that process. Again, as humans, there is a way our biases and prejudices, all of these things can come into play. But it is a continuous journey and commitment to a process that will help us get the kind of results that we are looking for. It is not miraculous, right? There are many times we want to get something done at the snap of a finger. But if we follow the process, at the end of the day, with a short period of time, we'll be able to record the kind of results, that we are looking for. So it's important not just to profile people for training. It is important to conduct a training need analysis that will be the result of, that would have come from the performance appraisal over a period of time, and then we'll keep having square pegs in square holes.
Okay, I love the fact that you mentioned performance. Innovation and creativity is what drives the private sector from development from time to time. But in public service, you will see a junior colleague with an idea or innovation, but the fear of, me telling my superior, won't she feel that I'm trying to take over the mantle of leadership? Won't he feel that I know too much? How do we bridge this gap? And of course, erase this complex?
Complex. You've mentioned a very important point. A very important point. I'm reminded of a quote, as you said that, about culture and strategy. It says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? It's a cultural thing. One of the things I mentioned earlier is to ensure that we engage leaders, even in public service, on cultural reorientation. It is normal and true for someone to feel threatened that, oh, if this younger fellow, that has this idea brings it up, maybe I will lose my position. And it's important for us to be sensitive, and that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Is it the same in the corporate world?
It is not exactly the same in the corporate world, right? Because in the corporate world, it's 100% about your performance, right? So if you just got into the workplace 5 years ago and you're able to deliver something and someone else was here 10 years before you, I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's about who brings the results, right? Now, what we want to do in the public sector, in public service, the peculiar nature of the culture, is to continue to assure and engage leaders of their continuous relevance. You see, as a leader, your job is not actually to do the work. Your job is to inspire people to deliver excellence, to see themselves greater than who they were, who they are supposed to be. But tell me, when you are saying this, what I've just said now, if you say it to a leader who didn't receive that kind of leadership from his own superiors, who have maybe retired now, how do we expect that person, to cascade that kind of leadership to the people coming? So it's a cultural orientation that we need to do, we need to conduct, and it is possible, it is doable, so that we can drive innovation and creativity. Another thing we can do in public service is to inject technocrats, into the service, so that it can help the level of skill, level of thinking, and the culture, for us to level up, with it, which is critical. So we build capacity, we inject with technocrats, we engage in cultural orientation, we build the capacity of public service so that public servants, so they can deliver excellence.
Okay, we have identified some of the challenges facing the public service, and our members of the public can also help the service in meeting its targets and goals. Okay, in terms of motivation and reward system, do you think the public service is doing enough, looking at the economic realities of our time?
I would say that the public service can do better. While it is great to incentivize based on length of time, which is number of years of experience, it is also important for us to introduce a performance incentive, right? And that performance incentive, whether you're a very senior leader or you're in the middle or you're just joining in, it should be available, based on that. Now, what does performance incentive do? A performance incentive will motivate the individual public servants, to do a little bit more than what it is that they are delivering at the moment, to make something work faster, to make it happen easier, to make it better. Those three words: faster, easier, better. To do the work better, to make the approval happen faster, for example, and to make it easier to work across those three lines. So when we introduce a performance incentive, it creates a healthy competition even within the public sector. And it helps people, to see that, oh, so I can earn more if I add this value. Because for the most part, every one of us, we're human beings. And we want our contributions to be recognized. When your contribution is not recognized, you feel demotivated and you can just leave it there. Well, colloquially, Ogata,
I'll collect my pay.
I'll collect my pay. But when our contribution is recognized, we are more motivated. We also have instances in some places where the people that are being recognized are actually not the people making the contribution. So that's also counterproductive. If we want to drive excellence, and if we want to recognize some people for whatever reason, all the biases that we face, religious bias, ethnic bias, any of those biases, we can create something else, to address that. But you just want to ensure that you don't allow biases and prejudices and affiliations to get in the way of delivering peak performance.
Okay. Another bias that we have in the service, because people are sending me some messages now, another bias that we have in the service is a situation whereby, just like the Nigerian society, we lay emphasis on paper qualification instead of competence and performance. How do you think we can solve this problem?
So, in the beginning of getting work done, paper qualification was a way of sifting through.
Because like you rightly said, in the private sector, it's about what you can deliver,
Yeah.
the values that you can add.
Yes. So, in the beginning, the purpose of the paper credential is to sift from the crowd, just to sort out a few people from the crowd. What we continue to see is that even when you have sifted, right now, you have someone who has maybe a first class or a 2-1, and the person may not be as driven, as creative. The person may not be a top performer like the person that has a 2-2, right? Or even at times less. And so what we need to continue to do is not that we throw away our certificates, no, there's a place for that. But it's that you look beyond, that we continue to look beyond what it is that has been delivered, presented to us, and now conduct periodic performance appraisal. And it has to be empirical, not just about the thoughts, the biases, the opinions of the individual leader. There has to be certain criteria. We call it KPI, key performance indicators. So when you come in, even you present your certificate and then you've gotten the job, after X period, maybe 6 months period, that's first 6 months. In the private sector, we would say that until 6 months when you are confirmed. Now, that 6 months, a lot of things are going on, checking on your performance, trying to even confirm the credentials that you have given, to the organization. And then after the appraisal is conducted, you are given feedback on your performance, where you need to improve. Another appraisal is conducted in another 6 months. The idea is to help the person to see the gaps. Every one of us, we have blind spots. We have things we cannot see about ourselves that a performance appraisal system will help us to see. And there are times that some people think the appraisal is to punish people. It's not punitive. It's to help to bring out, to let us see what skills gap are, so that they can recommend you for proper training, so that you can deliver excellence.
Okay, my colleague over there, Adebimpe, she has a question for you.
Okay.
Ask another question relating to that. We're talking about certificates, and why does the civil service differentiate between certificate from a polytechnic and certificate from the university? They give priority more to those that go to university with all the degrees than those who went to the polytechnics.
Okay. While I cannot answer that directly, I can just share an opinion.
Okay.
This is not limited to public service.
Okay.
It's in our country.
Okay.
There is the perception, and it's perception, and they said that perception is stronger than reality. There is the perception that those who graduated from a university are more competent. Perception again. Are more competent than those who graduated from a polytechnic.
But they are more hands-on, those from the polytechnics.
And by the way, it gets more interesting that it is not just even universities. Some time ago, if you did not attend all the I's Ibadan, Ilorin, Ife, right? If you did not attend all the I's Ibadan, Ilorin, Ife, and of course Lagos, then you are not competent. Then they started opening up to state universities. Oh, okay. And then there's another competition, which is private universities right now. So it's a perception, and it's a perception of what the employer is seeking. Now, what do we need to do? What we need to do for people who are already in the system, whether you have a polytechnic, an HND, a BSc from a private school, from a public school, from whichever school. The challenge is, it is your responsibility to deliver excellence right now, such that it is easier for anybody to make a case that graduate from polytechnics or graduate from these schools, are competent. It is important for us to know that many times the opinions that people have, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then you think that, okay, people from this kind of school behave in a particular way, or from this kind of schools behave in a particular way. It is the responsibility of the people from that school to make sure that they are ambassadors, so that we're not just looking for legislation that will say, from whether you're from polytechnic or you're from the university, now there's a law that says accept everyone. Because for private sector, The primary goal of the employer is to make profit.
Exactly.
And then if you come in, whatever degree
And you
you
deliver.
have, you're not adding value, you're out. If you're adding value, you're commended.
Yeah.
If you're adding value and you've come from a not so popular school, then you're making the school popular, right? And it's important for us to know that while this is a perception, that those of us that are already in the system should continue to deliver excellence. And perhaps what can also happen, maybe this is from the level of the government, is there could be a legislation, but before the legislation, certain tests should be conducted to be sure, so that we are sure that this is not just gainsaying, this is not just armchairing, that there's empirical evidence that those who had gone to these kinds of schools and this kind of schools, that people in A are maybe even better than people in B, so not just opinions, and then that can help us, to ensure that we deliver excellence. The goal is to deliver peak performance in public service.
Without bias.
Okay, so, yeah, you have a question? Talking about delivering peak performance in public service, we are in the 21st century, and of course everything is driven by technology. So what are the strategies that we need to put in place if indeed we want the quality of service being delivered by public servants in the country to be top-notch?
Okay. One of the things we need to do is to demystify technology. Because technology continues to be a mystery in the minds of many. It was before typewriter, and then we have the computer, and then we have the computer in our pockets, and then the current one now is AI. I say, oh, AI will take your job. Say, will I still have this job? So it is important for us to demystify technology. And the thing with technology that all of us need to continue to remind ourselves of is that there will continuously be improvement in technology. Technology is not new, it's just an advancement, it's just an improvement. And when we demystify it and we make people see how it enhances their work, how it is not a replacement for the value that they bring, it helps more people to embrace technology. And I said this to you, at some point in time, the cutlass was technology. Because before anybody made that cutlass, they were using something else. And then later on, we have mechanized farming. And later on, right now, you don't even need to see any machine on a farm. And then you see everything growing because there are other ways that science has evolved now. So it is critical for us to demystify technology. For us to see technology as what we need to use to improve our work rather than a replacement of the value that we bring. And I think that's where the core of the work is. Because the moment we can lay our foundation and all of us, we see that this is to improve our work and not a replacement for us, and then more people are more open-minded, to embracing tech.
So aside from technology, what else should be done?
Back to the training, which is very important. Because many times we blame people for what they don't know, right? One of my favorite sayings is, if you don't train them, you can't blame them. So let us build capacities, for public servants all round. There shouldn't be a quarter that passes in your office that you don't have a specific targeted training for people. And when we say training, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with a big budget, right? Depending on the budget available to you, you can get facilitators. You can even do it internally, right? Of course, for some kind of high-level training, you need some external facilitators. You may even need to take people to a location, to make sure that the training you want to deliver is effective. But what we want to ensure we do in driving excellent performance in public service is that at the maximum every quarter, there is something new that people are learning, or there is something that they are reminding themselves of, towards delivering excellent performance in public service.
Not that we'll continue to do it the same way of those olden days.
No. It said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And if we really, truly want a different result, we should commit to MAD, making a positive difference by the consistent actions that we make towards learning.
Okay, in changing the perception of the public about public servants and the services that they render, which role does motivation play here?
So, are we talking about motivation?
It comes in different shades,
okay.
So depending on the one you want to talk about.
So it's important that while we're talking about reorientation for public service, even the public as well, right? Because at times people have unrealistic expectations of what they want public servants, to deliver. They cannot do it even in their own businesses. And the moment they enter the public servant's office, they just expect, at the snap of a finger, that something is delivered. It is important to orient people that there are processes, in place. And rather than pointing fingers and condemning, criticizing public servants, it's also important for the public to support public servants. If you have a public servant in your family, hug them today and tell them well done as you are watching, and tell them well done. Thank them for the service they render. And I tell you this, I remember some time ago I was in Harvard, for a program, and every public servant that was in my class, the moment they introduce themselves and they mention where they work, there is this cultural way of engaging them, this phrase, thank you for your service. Now, over there, yes. Now, you don't need to know them. They are not, you don't even need to have been served directly by them, but just because they identify as this is the work that they do, there is an appreciation. I am not sure that any public servant that is listening and watching me now, I'm not sure you have received a thank you anonymously from anyone. By thank you, I mean words, not something else. I'm not sure you've received, somebody has looked at you and said thank you. When you get something like that, you are human.
It encourages you.
It encourages you. You are touched to continue to deliver excellent service. And these things are critical. They may look small, but these little things make a huge difference in the work that people do.
Okay, before we wrap up our conversation this morning, what do you have to say about the reward system?
Okay, reward system can be improved, and reward is never enough. Reward is never enough. Left to us as human, this is not about public service now, but left to us as human beings, right? If we can make demand, if I make a high demand for a little contribution, and we can do that every week or every day, we will continue to do it. But on a more serious note, what we should look at is reward can be better. And I had mentioned something about performance incentive the other time.
Because people often say that the public service is corrupt. So when the reward system does not match up with your needs and your demands, definitely as human, you find a way out.
Yes, and that's where I'm getting to. That there are economic realities. Public servants, they have children going to school. They want to send them to the best of schools. They need housing. I mean, they're just the basic Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? And it's important for us to motivate public servants to continue to deliver excellence, which is the desire, that we put certain things in place, to help them, to reward their contribution, and also, in addition to rewarding their contribution, to make some basic things, basic needs more convenient for them, to meet with. I was at a particular state, and I saw that the civil service provides some buses, right, to help transport civil servants from the secretariat to different locations. With that, that happens in Lagos too.
It does.
With that, it eases the burden, of transportation on civil servants. And it's not just the burden of transportation, what they would have spent money on, right? And the discomfort that might have come with them commuting themselves. Now, this is a great thing. And there are more things, that can be done in the nick of time. And for public servants as well, to continue to commit to delivering, excellent performance, supporting as we are trying to build a bigger democracy, supporting the government, supporting the people, delivering excellence, knowing that where you are right now, it's a significant position for you to make a huge difference.
All right, we must thank you very much, Dr. Abiola Salami, the champ, world-class performance strategies, who has been sharing his thought with us today on how we can make the best out of our public service. And he mentioned engagement, empowerment, and motivation. We hope that public servants who are watching us from different parts of the world this morning will take a cue from what Dr. Abiola had said on the program today, and of course make their services better for the improvement of our society. Once again, we thank you for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.